Greetings builders and welcome to another top 3 video where every week I choose a topic and show you my 3 favorite builds of it. Today's theme is for those who like to be close and personal. I'm talking about the melee builds. And if you wanna try any of those, you can find links for POBs and complete guides in the video description. And if this video helps you, please leave a thumbs up to support the channel. Thank you very much and let's get into it. Let's start with the destructive and well-rounded Boneshatter Juggernaut with the Marauder class. This build is perfect for the melee enthusiasts out there. Boneshatter hits enemies so hard that it hurts your own character, accumulating trauma stacks. For each trauma you're going to deal and take more damage. That's why it's important to gather both attack speed and armor to stack many traumas and sustain their damage. To list the pros of this build, I would start with its survivability. Even though you do damage to yourself, this build has so much armor that you won't feel a thing. Now, because of that, you might think that this build had to sacrifice speed or boss damage, but no, it's still super fast and can kill guardians in just a few seconds. Now, to list the cons, the first thing that comes to mind is that you need to keep an eye on your accuracy. This is because the Keystone precise technique that grants 40% more damage if your accuracy is bigger than your life. As for budget, this build is cheap. You can get it destroying early in-game maps with only around 60 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, I recommend investing around 120 chaos, and for easily completing your atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines. Don't forget that on PoEbuilds.net you can find a list with all the equipment that you need to buy for this build, with direct links for examples being sold by other players. For clear speed, I'll give it 9 out of 10. Boneshatter also creates a big pulse of damage when stunning enemies. That means that a single blow can kill an entire pack of monsters. Other than that, you stack a lot of attack speed that causes your Leap's Land to almost teleport you through the map. The boss damage is also great and deserves 9 out of 10. Using Berserker on bosses causes you to accumulate a lot of trauma stacks and deal huge amounts of damage. For this survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. This build has a huge amount of armor and over 80% to all elemental resistances. Above all, it also has permanent Fortify and immunity to freeze, bleed and stuns. I only took 1 point out because since the rework on Unbreakable, it's not as tanky as it used to be. Next we have the super fun and spin to win Cyclone of Tumult Slayer with the Duelist class. Now with the new melee buffs, many of you were asking for the update of this build, and here you go, it was an absolute delight to play this one. Now it feels really powerful all the time, almost as we used to feel on bosses with the Ancestral Totems, and now we even have the reworked banners for the extra DPS during boss fights. To list the pros of this build, I would start with its clear speed. It's just amazing to be always moving and massacring all the poor enemies on the way. The boss damage is also incredible. Once the build is done, you are going to kill even the big bosses in just a matter of seconds. And above all of that, this build is very simple and easy to put together. Now to list the cons, I would point a few important issues and I'd like to ask you to pay close attention here. You see, this build has a great survivability once it's done. But when you're leveling your character, you need to pace your progression, because you're always very close to enemies. If you're not prepared, you are going to die. So take the extra time to pick up a few more levels before progressing to a high tier content. Another useful tip about your survivability is how to deal with stuns. On this build, you get stun immunity with cluster duels, but not everyone can afford them right away. If that's your case, or if you're just having problems with stuns sooner, do this simple trick of picking those evasion nodes and this mastery. Believe me, it helps a lot. As for budget, you can get it destroying early in-game maps with only around 90 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, I recommend investing around 150 chaos, and for easily completing your atlas, I recommend investing around 6 divines. You only need one mandatory unique item for this build, the Stampede boots that guarantee that your movement speed will always be 150% of its pace. This means that the downside of Cyclone of Tumult will mean absolutely nothing to us. For clear speed, I'll give it 9 out of 10. Cyclone never stops moving and have a huge area of effect, so you can farm your maps without the need to stop for casting or anything like that. It's just awesome and very satisfying. The boss damage is just amazing and deserves 10 out of 10. When this build is done, you're going to easily achieve over 15 million DPS that is more than enough to destroy bosses in just seconds. For this survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. This build achieves almost 80,000 effective HP because of high armor, evasion, spell suppression, fortify, and even some instant life leech. Now, with the huge arrow effect from Cyclone of Tumult, you don't even need to stay very close to enemies on endgame, what gives you even more survivability. Finally, we have the super popular, fast, strong and tanky Lightning Strike Trickster with the Shadow class. Lightning Strike is an awesome skill that used to be on top of the meta, but went down after a couple of nerfs. Now with the recent buffs, it's back to the top and with more power than ever. To list the pros of this build, I would start with its clear speed. Besides a strong melee hit, Lightning Strike also creates many lightning projectiles that run on the floor, killing every enemy on its path. Besides that, this build also counts with the Trickster Ascendance to be super fast and tanky. It has 7 frames charges for extra damage and speed and a lot of defensive layers. Now to list the cons, the first thing that comes to mind is that this build needs a good elemental call to work properly, but don't worry, it's easy to buy one from other players. As for budget, this build is not expensive at all. You can get it destroying early in-game maps with only around 80 chaos. To comfort with advanced to yellow maps, you need to invest around 150 chaos, and for easily completing your atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines. For clear speed, I'll give this one 10 out of 10. As mentioned before, you have 7 frames charges and a huge effect of elusive that grants this build a lot of movement speed. Besides that, Lightning Strike creates many projectiles that run on the floor, exploding many enemies that aren't even close to you yet. The boss damage is also amazing, deserves 9 out of 10. Lightning Strike just received a big damage buff, and this build is an awesome boss killer. For the survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. This build has over 100,000 effective HP because of high armor, evasion, spell suppression, fortify, and even a trickster buff that causes you to take 40% less damage. Above all, you are immune to freeze and stuns. And that's it for today, guys. Are you playing any of those melee builds? Please take a second to tell me in the comments and leave a thumbs up to support the channel. I wish you guys an amazing day, and don't forget to keep building!